Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to my YouTube channel here called Wine with Jimmy. And I'm delighted to have you on board. This is a wine educational channel, really designed to help those of you that really want to learn a lot more about wine, and specifically for those of you sitting your wine examinations. So this series we're tapping into here is called The Wines of the World. That's the D3 unit on the WSET Level 4 Diploma. And this is a series, well, one of the series of the Loire Valley. So this is series 6 of 7. This is looking at the Touraine AOCs. And this is part 1 looking at the Touraine AOC. So let's have just a quick look at that. So here are the huge multi-part series, a little bit like a big epic novel. And you've got all of these different parts to it, all the way through to series 7. But we are just here on series 6. And series 6 on the Touraine AOCs is split into 4 parts. This part is available as free content here on the world of YouTube. But parts 2 through to 4 will only be available on my e-learning portal. That's www.winewithjimmy.com. Lots of extra goodies there to be found, such as flashcards, map questions, and all of those things to help you really get to grips with your studies so you can conquer the big mammoth task that is the WSET Level 4 Diploma. And there are many other different courses we help you with there as well. Also, it's ad-free in comparison to YouTube. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, we'd love to hear from you. Pop them in the comments section below. And there's a couple of things you can click whilst you're there. The like button, because it helps us, but also subscribe if you want access to weekly updates from this channel. Okay, so let's rock and roll with our part 1 here, looking at the Touraine AOC. And before we really get stuck into this, I want to just give you a nice little picture of really the area. And it's, of course, of probably the most important, there we go, got it going there, the most important city. There are many important cities here in the Touraine area, including places like Orléans and Amboise and Blois, and that's just naming a few. But the city of Tours is of real importance, and here is quite an important part of the city of Tours. This is the Plumereau Square or Place that you find in the city of Tours, and it's really Vieux Tours. It's really the old part of the city. It's got those gorgeous, carefully restored, half-timbered townhouses that you can see in the bottom, which wouldn't be amiss in somewhere like Alsace, in fact. But you'll find the area being packed full of things like cafes, bistros, restaurants, and lots of bars. And of course, you can get anything from an apéritif all the way to late-night coffee. But of course, great food, wonderful cheese, and then, of course, delicious wine as well on top of it. So the city of Tours. Now, I will show you a Google Earth video after we've gone through the information in terms of the wine knowledge of the Touraine AOC at the end of this presentation, just to give you a really good visual interpretation of the beauty that is the Touraine area. And we will see the city of Tours on that as well. So what about the AOC? Now, we're starting with this one because it is a significant one in terms of volume and also in terms of hectarage. But of course, there's probably Vouvray would pip it as the most important of the wine areas of Touraine. But we're going to begin here. And we begin here by talking about really the expanse of this area. You'll see it's the orange shade on the map. There's the city of Tours. We're going all the way to the far west of this part, which is Touraine. That's where it borders Anjou-Saumur, and then all the way up towards Blois, and then all the way up towards Montrachat as well. All this far sort of side east as you head towards the central vineyards as you would say. So the appellation covers the same wide range of wines as Saumur AOC that was discussed in a previous series. And that's things like whites and reds and pink wines and sparkling wines, of course. But the change here is the fundamental grape variety as you move from the west in Saumur and places like Angers. The principal white variety is Chenin. But as you cross into this landscape, as you head east, you are in the landscape of Sauvignon Blanc. And the principal red varieties are still Cabernet Franc. Also, the Côte variety Malbec is found here a little bit as well as a bit of Gamay too. The soil here is very varied. There's big diversity, but you'll find flinty clays, clay and limestone combinations that are on a chalky bed, that tuffeau type soil. And in the east, you'll find sand on flint in this area, as well as gravelly stones and sand, certainly when you get close to rivers such as the Cher River and the Loire, of course, itself. So what about the actual AOC? Well, you see here, 5,500 hectares according to Loire Valley Wines, their website. And you will see the numbers here. In fact, you've got 65 hectolitres per hectare for the white production for Touraine AOC, and the red is 60 hectolitres per hectare. And I've actually repeated that here, but we're going to go into just a bit of information here because, as we mentioned, principal is Sauvignon Blanc, then Cabernet Franc, a bit of Malbec Côte, and then Gamay as well. That is also grown. And the name of the variety in this instance may be attached to Touraine. You'll see that here. So this is Domaine Octavie, Touraine, as you see here, and Gamay is clearly on the label. So you'll see that. Pink wine may be made from a wide range of varieties. I've put this at the bottom here. So same level of production of yield, 60 hectolitres per hectare. Cabernet Sauvignon, Côte and Gamay, but Cabernet Sauvignon is in addition here to Cabernet Franc. And of course, the real workhorse variety for pink wines, Grolier Noir, is also in production here too. And then some subzones. Now, this is quite a fluid part of the appellation laws. And what I mean by that is that there's quite a lot of changes happening here frequently. So let's talk about what's covered really in your text of your diploma. So in addition to the basic Touraine AOC, which we've just discussed, there is the possibility of adding a subzone, which I think in the diploma text they mentioned 6, but this has changed because of certain subzones which have been elevated to their own AOCs. Now, the one that's only really mentioned as an example in your text is the one we have up on the slide, and that is Touraine AOC, but it's a subzone of that around the city of Amboise, which is that city just to the east of Vouvray and Tours, but to the west of Blois on the Loire River. So the other subzones include things like Azay-les-Redus, there's also Melun, and also Noblay-Jouet as well. And you may see that I haven't listed Chenonceau and also Wai as well on that list, because Chenonceau and Wai are both now elevated to AOCs in their own right. I can't remember exactly when. It's a few years ago. Put it in the comments section of exactly when that was. There'll be someone out there who will know that off by heart. I think it was like 10 years ago. So about 2012, potentially, around that time. So now the kind of focus on subzones means that subzone has often a sort of different focus of their grape varieties. So we know that Touraine AOC white is dominated by Sauvignon Blanc. Touraine AOC Amboise is actually more about Chenin Blanc, as you'll see up on the slide. The reds are relatively similar to what the rest of Touraine is, but you will find that difference, and also a difference in the yield limits. So we mentioned previously that it was 65 hectolitres per hectare with Touraine AOC. You see it's dropped lower to 60 hectolitres per hectare for the Touraine AOC Amboise. Now in your text, I believe it actually says 65, I think, but in the Loire Valley website, it is actually 60. So that has something that has changed recently as well. The red is lower as well than the generic Touraine AOC at 55 hectolitres per hectare that you can see. So that's just a little thing around the subzone. And there are the other subzones. Now, the two that have they're given AOCs in their own status, which is Chenonceau, which is the beautiful area close to that castle, of course, which was the holding picture of the first slide. I'll show you it again. There you are. So that's Chateau Chenonceau. Now, that, along with Oisy as well, so that's Oisly, these are Sauvignon Blanc dominated areas, widely seen as some of the best parts, really, of the Touraine AOC for that matter. So yes, there you are. Just a little bit of information about the Touraine. Now let's have a look at a video, just so you get a good idea of what it looks like in terms of a Google Earth. And here we go. So this should be only just a minute and a half. There you are. Oh, and we've got the Chateau Chenonceau to have a look at. Beautiful place to visit, and gorgeous in its architecture and also garden landscape as well. So there's the Loire, of course, well, part of the river, and all of the green bits are the viticultural land. We are going to get rid of the bits we're not talking about, and we just left there with Touraine, which includes places like Vendemoire and Poitiers at the bottom. But we're going to look at the main part of here. But before we do, let's look at some of the key locations. And we're going to go very close to, well, let's have a look. Here we are. So this is on the River Cher. This is Chateau de Chenonceau that I've been talking about. It has its own appellation today. And this is the lands that you can come and visit. You go down a wonderful avenue into the gardens, and you can visit this castle, go down the ballrooms that go across the River Cher, which is quite wonderful. It is just one of a huge list of beautiful castles in the Loire, but made out of the local stone, of course, the tuffeau, and very special to visit. So quite well known, that area, for the best Sauvignon, some of the best Sauvignon in Touraine. That is the whole encompassing area of generic Touraine, just identified there. And now we're going to go up to the city of Amboise, which is a subzone, remember. We identified that earlier. And quite famous here for Sauvignon Blanc, for its whites, and then quite a lot of quite delicious, fresh, carbonically macerated Gamay is found in that style as well. And there is the whole Touraine zone again, just as we exit. So there you are. I hope you have enjoyed your first presentation in this series, this mini-part series of the whole encompassing Loire Valley. So please do join me for part 2, when we go to really the wonderful, probably the spiritual home of Sauvignon Blanc, and that is the village of Vouvray and its surrounding villages too, that can make Vouvray AOC. That will only be available to members of my e-learning portal. That's at www.winewithjimmy.com, and that's the same as part 3 and part 4 on this series as well. If you do have any comments, questions, or concerns, please get in touch either via the social media you see at the bottom of every slide, or popping a comments in underneath this video here on the world of YouTube. And if you do find yourself in London, come and see me at one of my establishments for maybe a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.